We need to be careful about the verbiage that we use. We need to be careful about the language that we use. We need to be careful about saying things that don't necessarily meet reality.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
I know there's not a ton of you out there, but this episode is for my realtor friends out there, my real estate agent friends out there, my broker friends out there. I know some of you listen to this program. Please listen to this episode. I want to pause here, remind you that we are sponsored by ANOW Software. ANOW is helping appraisers to manage their entire appraisal office from their fingertips. That means from their tablet, their phone, their desktop, their laptop. It's everywhere because it's in the cloud. anow.com to find out more, anow.com. All right, folks, I know we've talked about this before. In fact, I did an entire episode. I think it was called something to the effect of Words Matter or Words Mean Things. I don't remember the exact title, but we talked about how our language means something. Okay, and we need to be very, very careful about the words that we use. I'm seeing this happen more and more, not less and less. All right, let me set it up this way. Let me tell you a true story. I am going to paraphrase so as to not throw anyone under the bus. Not that anybody probably even belongs to the social media group that I'm talking about. It's actually a social media group that has to do with real estate investing and not a real estate appraisal. So probably most of you listening are not even part of it. And it doesn't matter at this point anyway because the guy deleted his post. But I am a bit of a, I dabble. Let's put it this way. I dabble in real estate investing. Just a little bit here, a little bit there, some short-term, some long-term rentals, some fix and flips, that kind of thing. And when I say I dabble, I mean I've done a few deals. I'm constantly on the lookout, but not done a lot with that. I want to motivate myself more in that direction, but nonetheless. As a consequence, I love to educate myself. And part of the education that I receive is through social media. And I like to sign up for groups for things that I am interested in. For example, I belong to several groups on Facebook that are appraisal related. I belong to several groups on Facebook that are real estate investor related. I belong to several groups on Facebook that are downhill skiing and motorcycle riding and outdoorsy because that's stuff that motivates me that I'm involved in. I enjoy, right? So I like when I scroll through my social media feed, I like to learn about those things that I'm interested in. And one of those things, as I mentioned, that I'm interested in is real estate investing. So I belong to a couple of groups that talk about real estate investing. Last week, as of this recording, an individual put up a post, a rant, if you will, about how he had put together a fix and flip. And he was so excited. And I'm just going to use fake numbers because I don't remember what the real numbers were. And again, he's deleted the post since. And thankfully, hats off to my fellow real estate investors out there for not letting this pass, because too often I think that they do. But basically the post was this. Hey, I put together this deal. This house is worth $300,000. I put it together for $250,000. We got all the way down to the end of putting this together. I've put blood, sweat, and tears into this deal, and the damned appraiser came in low. What should I do now? In fact, he even went through and said, listen, I tried to reach out to the appraiser. The appraiser wouldn't return my calls. By the way, I think that's a mistake, appraisers. I think we should return those calls. We should answer those calls, if you will. Now, there's confidentiality. There's things we can and can't do. We all know about those things, but I think we take that a little too far. To ignore someone's calls, I don't think is the right move. Nonetheless, I don't know exactly what happened in this situation. I'm just seeing it through the eyes of the individual who felt disgruntled, right? Here's a $300,000 house. I'm buying it for $250,000. I've gone through the financing, I've gone through this, I've gone through that, I've done all of this, and all of a sudden the damned appraiser screwed it up. And the damned appraiser screwed it up because the damned appraiser came in low. Folks, here's that term again. The appraiser came in low. He reached out to the appraiser wouldn't return his calls, so he showed up on the appraiser's doorstep at her home. I kid you not. I went to the appraiser's house, I banged on her door, she wouldn't answer. What do I do now? This is his post, right? Now, thankfully, my fellow real estate investor friends out there on Facebook said, you showed up to her house? Do you really think that was professional? Like, I wouldn't have done that if I were you. Thankfully, they had that approach because that was the right approach. Folks, come on. You showed up. I can't imagine what I would do if someone showed up. And by the way, this is not my client, of course. Okay. In this case, he was the borrower, the potential buyer. Obviously, the bank was the client here. And obviously the appraiser screwed up the deal because the appraiser came in low, but showed up on his doorstep. I'll tell you my answer to this individual. And by the way, there was a long string of answers. And again, most of these individuals had the same approach. They basically said, you showed up on her doorstep. Now, that's even beside the point. Let's just put that aside, okay? We can all, I think, agree that was not the right step. Well, I couldn't get a hold of her. She wouldn't return my call. So you showed up on her doorstep? Come on, really? Not cool. I heard a story years ago when I first started appraising of an individual who had a borrower show up on their doorstep with a baseball bat in a threatening manner. I don't know whether that was a true story or not, but it was a story that I heard. Okay. Now, in this case, I don't think the guy showed up with a baseball bat, but he showed up nonetheless. That's a little over the top, in my opinion. But let's not even deal with that side of it for a second. Let's just deal with the other side, and I'll tell you my answer to this individual. And I think that my answer was, though public on this forum, was very kind and very professional. Okay, I don't find that we have much to gain in being vitriolic, in being profane, in rising or lowering rather to the same level as someone else. Okay, so I think that my professional response, I hope was professional. I hope it was kind. And I said, as a fellow appraiser, I have to say I don't think that showing up on her doorstep was the right move, and frankly, I would call it unprofessional. Furthermore, please be careful of the words that you use. And by the way, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the exact answer in front of me. Please be careful of the words that you use. When you indicate that this appraiser came in low, what does that mean exactly? Do you mean came in too low for the value or came in lower than the purchase price? Because another way to look at this is that the appraiser came in at the value that could be supported by the market, and you're paying, despite your numbers and despite your emotion and despite your being wrapped, now I'm adding a few things here, despite you being wrapped up in this deal and motivated to close the deal, is it possible that you're paying too high, that your numbers are too high, not that the appraiser's numbers are too low? Now, within a few minutes, this individual completely deleted his post, so there was no way to even follow up and see how he felt about it. But I assume he didn't feel too good about my answer. Okay? I want to talk today about words and how words matter. When you use the word come in low, what is it that you mean? I want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by a great company. I'll tell you what I mean. ANow is a great company. ANow software is helping me to be a better appraiser business owner. Why? Because at my fingertips, folks, I can find out exactly what's going on in my business anytime I want. ANow software helps me to do that. On my phone, on my laptop, on my desktop, on my tablet, it doesn't matter. Anywhere I have an internet connection, I know exactly what my numbers are. I know exactly what's happening with each and every order. And by the way, we have a lot of volume going through the pipeline. ANow keeps track of it all, keeps us on our toes, keeps us from going too late on delivery because it reminds us, hey, you got this coming up, get it done, dummy. ANow software, anow.com, ANOW.com. Welcome back to the program, everybody. I'm telling a story about an individual who got on social media and complained at the fact that he had put together a deal where he was purchasing what he thought was a $300,000 house for $250,000, but the damned appraiser came in at $210,000, $40,000 low, and basically screwed up his deal. Okay, let's talk through this a little bit because this happens all the time, and it typically is seen. By the way, again, this episode today is to my realtor friends, my agent friends, my broker friends. Okay, maybe even my mortgage broker friends, my loan officer friends. What does it mean to come in low? Is it possible? Just go with me on this journey for a little bit. Is it possible that this individual is paying too much, even at $250? That his numbers might have said $300, but guess what? He's not a trained appraiser. At $250, he thought he was getting a $50,000 deal, but still he was $40,000 too high, meaning his number of $300,000 was $90,000 above market price. Is that possible? I would say it's not only possible, but probable, and go with me on this journey for just a second. What possible motivation would an appraiser have to, quote unquote, come in low? Let me repeat that. What possible motivation could appraisers have for coming in, quote unquote, low? Now, I know what you're going to say because I've asked that question before for agents, and some of them say something to the effect of, well, Dustin, obviously they have a motivation because it's liability. They want to be conservative because if they're too high, then they're going to draw the repercussions of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, buybacks, state board. Really? Folks, trust me on this. Your chances of having a state board inquiry are much, much less, okay, if you come in too high than if you come in, quote unquote, too low. Trust me on this, okay? Because what happens is an individual might complain about a low appraisal. I rarely see someone complain about a high appraisal. Now, trust me, please don't turn off yet. Let me finish my sentence, okay? I am not saying that an appraiser should have motivation either way. In fact, they should not. A professional will give you the true value one way or the other. But if you want to talk about motivation, trust me on this. An appraiser has no motivation to come in low or lower than the purchase price on an appraisal. And that's really what I want to talk about here is verbiage. Okay, you notice how I just said that, because that's the way that I see this term being used constantly. The appraiser, quote unquote, came in low. What does that actually mean? Came in low. Now, if you want to follow through to the end of the row and finish the sentence, then okay, my hat's off to you. You said it right. The appraiser came in lower than the purchase price. Okay, fine. That's true. That's accurate. But to come in low indicates that somehow the appraiser screwed things up, because the appraiser obviously didn't see the purchase price, because if he or she had, he or she would have come in at or above the purchase price. This is just how these things work. I'll go one step further. I've heard agents say, well, listen, if you've got a willing buyer and a willing seller, that's what it's worth. Really? Then why do clients order appraisals? Is it just to rubber stamp the deal? And furthermore, let me finish what I said to this individual. Basically, this individual who was on social media complaining about the fact that his appraiser had come in low and he had showed up on the doorstep. No, not with a baseball bat, but showed up on the doorstep. I basically said, listen, you're using the term came in low. Yes, I understand it came in lower than your purchase price. But this is what I said. Maybe you should also show up on the appraiser's doorstep with a basket full of goodies and a thank you note for saving you from making a $40,000 mistake. Yes, that's what I said. Is it possible that this appraiser, by doing his or her job correctly, helps to save someone from making a huge error, a huge blunder? I say yes. We need to be careful about the verbiage that we use. We need to be careful about the language that we use. We need to be careful about saying things that don't necessarily meet reality. Appraisers are professionals. They don't have a motivation to come in high or a motivation to come in low. Their only motivation is to be an unbiased third party and to tell the client what the home or the property is worth. Now, if that doesn't fit in with your goals and aspirations, please don't go to the appraiser's home and knock on their door and demand that they do things differently. The job of an appraiser is to tell the client what the home is worth. Nothing more, nothing less. Folks, I want to tell you about a new product that we have here at the Appraiser Coach. It is accountability. Do you need motivation? Do you need to be held accountable? Do you need to have your feet held to the fire? I will do that for you on a regular basis. You set it up how regular you want to do this. Typically, it is once a month, and we will have a phone call together. And I will say, Joan, let's talk about your goals for last month. How did you do? What kept you from accomplishing all of them? What do you want to set as goals for this coming month? It is a service that I provide that you can participate in. You can go to my website, theappraisercoach.com. Now, you do need to either be a member of the Dream Team, okay, because in the Dream Team we're setting regular goals, or had recent coaching from me. But I promise to hold you accountable, and I promise to make it professional, but I promise that it will be motivating for you. Thank you for joining me today, folks. We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.